Pokrovsk in Russian control yet?
No, not yet. But I mean,
about to be.
Well,
because I've been hearing Pokrovsk is about to be in Russian control now for almost a year.
Pokrovsk is right adjacent to this lithium deposit.
Why is Pokrovsk so important? So
it's important. It's important because it's a major town of like 80,000 people, which is big for Donbas, of like 80,000 people. So it's a major logistical hub for Ukraine. But right now, if this cup was Pokrovsk, so the Russians have flanked it like this. So even delivering supplies there, and a lot of Ukraine's logistics, it rests on Pokrovsk. So just
is Pokrovsk big enough for us to say, pardon me for interrupting you, but I'm just thinking, is Pokrovsk important enough for us to say that as Pokrovsk goes, so will go the war? In other words, once Russia gets Pokrovsk, we're like
I'd say
close to the end?
I'd say that would be a major indication that Ukraine's days, the days of the Ukrainian armed forces in Donetsk region of Russia, they are numbered.
Obviously, Ukrainian troops are currently suffering a very sensitive defeat here, at least on a tactical scale, which threatens with very significant chances to grow into an operational tactical one. These were the words of Ukrainian military observer Konstantin Mashovets, who described the current situation on the Novopavlivka direction in the Dnipro region as threatening. The Russian summer offensive of 2025 is gaining momentum, bringing steady territorial gains and strategic breakthroughs. According to Russian monitoring sources, over 470 square kilometers were liberated in June alone. The BBC Russian service puts the figure at 500 square kilometers captured, which they described as the highest for 2025. New victories added to the already substantial progress made in May, when more than 580 square kilometers came under Russian control. Ukrainian reporters are providing slightly different figures, claiming about 500 square kilometers were lost in June. But they were forced to reluctantly acknowledge the growing pace of Russia's offensive, undermining Kiev's earlier claims of having halted Moscow's advance. The summer campaign reached a symbolic milestone in early June when the head of the Lugansk People's Republic declared the complete liberation of the republic's territory. This announcement, widely echoed by the media, was framed as the fulfillment of one of key objectives of the special military operation. However, reports from the battlefield noted that some small border areas, including the village of Yegorovka and some forests, remain contested, casting doubt on the absolute nature of the claim. The Republic was fully liberated back in 2022, but as a result of Russian retreat, some positions were lost. Today, Ukrainian forces still maintain their presence in the border areas. Despite these minor discrepancies, the declaration carries political weight, highlighting Moscow's irreversible progress. Amid the liberation of the LPR, the Russian army gained its first victory in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Footage from the battlefield confirmed the capture of the village of Dachne, marking the first time Russian forces have established control in a new region. Located on the northern bank of the Volga River, the control of Dachne provides Russian troops with a strategic foothold, enabling further advances along key Ukrainian supply routes. A new foothold across the river allows Russian forces to occupy elevated positions that negate Ukraine's previous observational advantages. This breakthrough opens new operational possibilities, including potential pressure on Ukrainian logistics hubs west of Pokrovsk, which heavily rely on the M04 highway. Ukrainian defenses in this area, although entrenched in forested highlands, face growing logistical strain as Russian forces disrupt supply lines, creating an increasingly isolated pocket of resistance. Meanwhile, Fighting continues on a wide front to Pokrovsk, where Russian troops are gradually advancing toward the administrative border of the Dnipropetrovsk region. The broader operational picture suggests a deliberate Russian strategy of methodical advances rather than rapid, high-risk maneuvers. By securing key terrain and degrading Ukrainian supply networks, Russian forces are setting the stage for further gains in the coming weeks, with July expected to bring even greater challenges for Ukrainian defenses. The summer campaign is poised to reshape the front line before another round of negotiations. And amidst this growing degradation of the front line for Ukraine, bad news came on the political front, with the Trump administration's freezing of key air defense and artillery munitions to Ukraine. This led to an outcry from Ukrainian media. More on that at the end of this video. Perhaps the only good news for Ukraine is that the Ukrainian command has managed to stabilize the front in the Sumy region and east of Pokrovsk. But in southern Donbas, the defensive lines have once again been breached. The Russian army has seized the territory between the Vovcha and Mory-Yali rivers and is now advancing toward a key Ukrainian stronghold, the town of Novopavlivka in the Dnipropetrovsk region. If the town falls, Russian forces will gain the ability to push north, bypassing Pokrovsk, and west, deeper into the Dnipropetrovsk region. After capturing Velika Novoselka in late January, Russian forces launched an offensive northward from the former Ukrainian Armed Forces stronghold, advancing along both banks of the Mory-Yali River. At the same time, another Russian group pushed west along the Vovcha River towards its confluence with the Mory-Yali. Over the course of nearly 6 months, each group advanced only about 15 kilometers, which is about 9 miles, amid heavy fighting. But as Russian troops closed in on their target, the junction of the two rivers from both directions, Ukraine's defenses entered a serious crisis. In June, the Vostok contingent, formed from forces of Russia's Eastern Military District, broke through along the Mory-Yali, pushing north through the village of Komar to the confluence with the Vovcha and seizing several settlements along the Vovcha's southern bank. Meanwhile, units from the center contingent, advancing from the direction of Kurakovy, captured the villages of Oleksivka, Novoukranka, and Dachne on the northern bank of Vovcha. Dachne is the first settlement in Ukraine's Dnipropetrovsk region to fall under Russian control. This advance forced the AFU to retreat from the area between the rivers toward the town of Novopavlivka to avoid encirclement. Their defense was further complicated by the limited number of crossings over the Vovcha, as Russian airstrikes regularly targeted bridges and pontoon crossings built by Ukrainian troops. Russian forces now threaten to reach Novopavlivka, a key stronghold that supports the entire Ukrainian defense south of Pokrovsk. BBC Russian service reports that Novopavlivka is a large logistics point for the armed forces of Ukraine in the Dnipropetrovsk region. It is covered by another important settlement for the armed forces of Ukraine, the village of Mezevaya. It supplies Ukrainian units defending in the area of Pokrovsk and Myrnograd, west of Donetsk, through it. In this direction, there are the last cities of the Donetsk region that remain under the control of Kiev. The loss of the village of Dachne and the wedging of the Russians half a kilometer deep in the Dnipropetrovsk region was confirmed by the Ukrainian military with the call sign Muchnaya. He proposed to seriously prepare for the defense of Novopavlivka and Mezava or Mezevaya.
Линзы да, пока не мешай брать, стремку закинули.
In the long term, Russian troops could press toward the Dnipro-Pokrovsk highway, potentially cutting off Ukrainian forces in the Donetsk region from the Dnepropetrovsk region. But it is not so important whether Russian troops entered the territory of the Dnepropetrovsk region or not. In terms of the military situation, another thing is important. The map shows that Russian troops are quite deeply wedged into the Ukrainian defense, and the threat of coverage really exists. Ukrainian military observer Konstantin Mashevets calls the Novopavlivka direction threatening. In quotations, obviously Ukrainian troops are currently suffering a very sensitive defeat here, at least on a tactical scale, which threatens with very significant chances to grow into an operational tactical one. In fact, the entire defense system of the armed forces of Ukraine south of the Vovcha River in the Donetsk region has collapsed. The enemy is deeply and confidently wedged into the combat formations of units and formations of the armed forces of Ukraine in this direction, advancing at a fairly high pace, up to 10 to 12 square kilometers per day. The forces and means of the armed forces of Ukraine operating in this direction cannot, at the moment, not stop, but even stop this breakthrough of the enemy, the Ukrainian expert writes. Now, Russia's offensive between Pokrovsk and Toretsk has slowed due to the redeployment of Ukrainian reserves to the sector, including units transferred from the Sumy region. In turn, the AFU forces were pulled from the area around Velika Novoselka to reinforce the regional center, Sumy, contributing to the collapse of the Ukrainian defenses in the area between the Volcha and Moriali rivers. Despite the slowdown, Russian troops continued to widen their incursion north of the Pokrovsk-Konstantinivka highway. East of Pokrovsk, they reached the Kazerny-Torets River near the settlement of Novo-Ekonomichny and are trying to break through to the Pokrovsk-Druzivka road, which links the Pokrovsk and Kramatorsk sectors. Farther east, Russian forces have become bogged down in battles for Yablonivka along the Pokrovsk-Konstantinivka road and for Alexandro-Kalinove near the western edge of the Kleban-Bisk reservoir. If Russian troops reach the reservoir, it would cut off Ukrainian units defending the western outskirts of Toretsk. Another Russian group is pushing toward the eastern end of the reservoir from Toretsk itself. These forces have captured a key Ukrainian fortified position, the Saint Matrona mine, which had previously blocked Russia's advance toward the reservoir. Russian troops also launched a direct assault from the east on Ukraine's main defensive stronghold on Toretsk's western edge. In the coming days, it's likely that Ukrainian forces, mostly National Guard units, which form the core of the local defense, will be forced to withdraw from Toretsk and fall back to the northern shore of the reservoir toward Konstantinivka. According to a representative of the Ukrainian brigade operating in the Pokrovsk direction, Russian units continue to use small infantry assault groups, often on scooters, sometimes with the support of heavy armored vehicles. Attacks often occur at night. Russian troops have a quantitative advantage in drones, says the representative of the armed forces of Ukraine. Now, in the Sumy region, Ukrainian forces have managed to slow the Russian advance toward the city of Sumy. The offensive initially made rapid progress, as some Ukrainian brigades, previously withdrawn from Russia's Kursk region with heavy losses, were either sent to rest or redeployed to the Pokrovsk-Konstantinivka highway, where Russian troops had just broken through. When Russian forces pushed 7 to 8 kilometers, or about 5 miles, into Ukrainian territory near Sumy, the Ukrainian command was forced to send reserves to reinforce this front. Intense fighting is ongoing near Oleksivka and Andriivka in the central section of the Sumy front. Farther east, in the village of Yunakivka, Ukrainian troops have managed to hold positions along the Sumy-Sudzha road. It appears that Russian forces are preparing a new offensive aimed at cutting the Sumy-Sudzha road west of Yunakivka in an effort to force Ukrainian troops to retreat into the city of Sumy itself. Now again, cutting Ukrainian weapon supplies, Washington's latest moves reeks of cold pragmatism, a gut punch to Ukraine's desperate fight against Russia's relentless onslaught. Is how the Kiev Post opened its article on the topic. The Pentagon, under Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, has slammed the brakes on critical weapon shipments, citing concerns over depleted U.S. stockpiles. The freeze includes Patriot interceptors, NASAMS munitions, Stinger missiles, and precision-guided GMLRS rockets and systems Ukraine relies on to shield its cities from Moscow's barrages. This isn't just a pause, they write. It's another betrayal, made worse as it's being dressed up in bureaucratic doublespeak. Ukraine's air defenses, they say, are stretched to breaking. Patriot systems capable of swatting down Russia's hypersonic Kinzhals are in critically short supply. Only 8 are operational. 2 are currently sidelined. NASAMS and IRIS-T systems, vital for intercepting cruise missiles and drones, are being ripped from the usual roles, defending the zero line and covering Ukraine's vital ground lines of supply and communications. The shortage of air defense systems means Ukraine has no choice but to redeploy these short-range mobile systems to protect high-density population centers like Kiev, Sumy, and Kryvyi from Russia's escalating targeted strikes. Washington's excuse, America first, says White House mouthpiece Anna Kelly, as if Ukraine's survival isn't a cornerstone of NATO's security, opines the journalist from Kiev Post. The Pentagon's review, he says, driven by Policy Chief Elbridge Colby, frets over U.S. stocks of Patriot interceptors, 155mm artillery rounds, Hellfire missiles, and GMLRS, claiming they're needed elsewhere, like countering Iran or the Houthis.